All right. We're back again for another week of Touchdown, the NFL chat show. Coming at you this week from Schwadorf in Austria. As always, I'm your host, Joel Turpin, and with me today is Martin Marhold. We're going to talk a little bit first about the games that we saw this last week, starting with the Thursday night matchup of Chicago and the Giants. Chicago pulling out the 27-21 win. What'd you think about this one, Martin?
Well, obviously the story of the week the story of the game is the 0-6 Giants, who have the worst starting record since 1976, which is quite some time already now. Good news for them is in 1976 they actually went 0-9, so they have a few more games to drop if they need to. Well, if you want to see something positive about the Giants, then it's probably the news that Brandon Jacobs is back with 100 yards and 2 DDs. But still, Eli Manning doesn't look like 2 times Super Bowl MVP. And as long as he continues to play like that, I don't think they have a very good chance to win games, or at least to win enough games to make it to the playoffs.
No, if your best news is recycling an old running back for a couple of touchdowns, that's not good. The question for me is this, are we looking at the end of the Tom Coughlin era in New York? Is this going to be a slow fade at this point, or is he going to
Well, I don't know. You got to give it to Tom Coughlin. He won the Super Bowl twice with them. So you usually just don't kick a guy who won you the World Championship twice in his career.
True.
In recent years also. So I guess it's also up to Tom Coughlin himself. I guess if he says, well, I'm going to make it another year, or I want to do another year just to prove that this was not a typical year for me,
right?
Then I think it's his choice to make. And I don't think they will just kick him out.
Okay, well, Chicago, I mean, they looked okay. They looked good. It's hard to tell against this particular competition, obviously, but they're staying right there in the thick of things in the race. And
yes, well, they had a 3-0 start, then last 2 in a row, and they snapped this streak again. They are 4-0. They are on top the NFC North together with the Lions. Also, the Packers still being in the mix with only 1 game behind. I think in the North only the Vikings are out already. But it's gonna be a tough competition there. The Bears and the Lions actually being stronger than I would have expected them before the season, and probably also the Packers being a little bit weaker.
Yeah.
But they're in the mix and they're going fine. Brandon Marshall also with 2 touchdowns again, 9 catches, most of it in the first half, if I recall correctly. I think they're doing fine, and it will be a tough division to make the decision on who's going to win it.
Well, speaking of tough decision on that division, the next game we're going to talk about is Green Bay 19, Baltimore 17. Another game which, for me, it's kind of hard to tell if the winners won it so much as the losers lost it.
Yeah, when watching the game, it was... Let's be honest, it was boring for most of it. If you say that you have 2 of the highest paid quarterbacks in the game, in this particular game, and you saw what they did, then you might reconsider your salary politics. Neither Flacco nor Rodgers looked really bright. Rodgers again, and I think it was the 3rd time in a row that he didn't manage to pull out more than 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and of course that was somewhat hampered by basically everyone on his receiving core going on the IR by the time the game was over. So
actually, you really have to think hard of who's left there. With James Charles and Randall Cobb leaving the game early.
Yeah, and it was bad enough that they brought Jermichael Finley back into the mix and started throwing him the ball again.
Well, they needed him, and actually had an important catch. Yeah, but the good news for them is Mason Crosby seems to be back.
Yes, there you go, the MVP of the
I followed his
Packers.
record because last year he was real in a deep slump, and he was basically kind of like Akers from San Francisco, both of usually very good kickers. And both of them went like missing about 50% of their kicks now, and Crosby missed his first one in the whole season, but still went 4 out of 5, and the one that missed was a 44-yarder, which is not one where you can say it's not a can't
Right.
miss.
It's not a gimme. Of course, the game that followed that was anything but boring. We had New England 30, New Orleans 27, and a game that went down to literally the final play and was just edge of the seat exciting.
Yeah, actually, I think it was the Saints game to lose until like 2 minutes to before the end. They had the game possession on the New England 24. If they had managed to do a touchdown on that, game over. Then again, they had an interception in their own half with I think about 2 minutes to play. New England only had one timeout left, so one first down, game over.
Yep.
Still, they didn't manage to do so, and then having an 8-play, 70 yards drive with done in 1 minute 8, without any timeouts used. Well, it's great. It's great what New England did there, of course.
Yeah.
But still, it was the Saints to lose.
Yes, obviously, and I think this is the sort of loss that a team like New Orleans is going to have no problem just kind of shrugging off and saying, okay, we were going to lose one sooner or later. Might as well be one against an AFC opponent and a good one on the road. Let's move on, and I don't think it's much of a blip
I
on
actually
their season.
still consider the Saints to be the better team, at least with the personnel they currently have. Might change when let's see how badly Amendola is hurt again.
Yeah.
When Gronkowski comes back, we'll need to check that out. Also, I think Aqib Talib left the game.
Yeah.
I haven't read any news on how serious his injuries are, and anyways, it's always a little bit hard with the Patriots with their policy concerning injuries. What actually is true and what not. So especially if they lose these three guys, then the Saints are for sure the better team in my eyes, and it was about one play, like 3 times in a row, and Patriots with the better end, but they deserved it, and I gotta give it to them. At some point I said I don't think the Patriots are gonna make the playoffs. Well, I was wrong.
Fair enough. Dallas and Washington. Dallas looks like they're going to make the playoffs, but I don't know that they're going to make it easy on anybody.
Well, in this division, I gotta say, everybody could make the playoffs because even the 0-6 Giants are only three wins behind the lead in the division, so there's nobody with a record of over 500. Next week there's going to be one team at least because the 2 500 teams are playing each other.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it's probably the Cowboys are the best team, and if you saw what they did in Week 5 against Denver, at least offensively, it was nice what they did, and also the might have been ruined by a late interception by Tony Romo, but on the other hand, if your defense allows so many points, then you can do whatever you want on offense. So it's definitely not Romo's fault what he did in Week 5. Sorry. Last week it was only around 70 yards passing, but still no serious problems I saw there. There was an interception, but it was an early one, but you can kind of come over. It's the late interceptions that hurt you most.
True.
The early ones you can say, okay, let's get over it. And actually they did, and of course, yeah, also Dwayne Harris with a punt return touchdown and a 90-yard kick return helped a lot.
Yeah. Last game we're going to talk about from the previous week, of course, is the Monday night matchup where San Diego pulled off the upset that yours truly predicted against the Indianapolis Colts. The takeaway from this for me was just that any given Sunday, a game where you're going into a stadium, a hostile stadium on Monday night game, that's just a recipe for an upset to me, and that's why I called it, not because I thought San Diego was a better team. In fact, I still think Indianapolis may be one of the tops in the entire AFC, but it just didn't surprise me much that they slipped up in this set of circumstances.
Yeah, it's not that the Chargers played it very well. And actually, I wasn't here last week, but I also had them picked on my list simply because I thought it was a home game for the Chargers. And the Chargers are always like you can't really predict how they will play, and it was time for a better game again.
Yeah.
And they pulled it off, and also they did a great job by keeping Andrew Luck off the field.
Yes.
They had very long drives, and actually I wrote it down. So they had 38 minutes of time of possession. So only 21 minutes left for the Colts. This helps a lot.
Yeah.
And they did a great job, and I kind of expected it. Still, the Colts are in the lead in the AFC South, which seems up for grabs actually now. They could have gained a two game lead over Tennessee. Well, I think the Colts are the best team in the division. Houston being obviously in trouble.
Yes.
And also the Chargers being in, at least if you count the wins, being in the strongest division in the whole NFL now. They're also 3-3, and every now and then they do show up, so they could be in the run for a wild card in the AFC.
Yes, you don't want to discount them yet, excuse me. Yeah, okay. So when we come back from our break, we'll go ahead and discuss some of the upcoming games for this next week, week 7 in the NFL. Until then.
See you.
Okay, and we're back. And we're ready to talk about the upcoming games for this weekend. We're going to start off and just hit them quick, starting with Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Not exactly the matchup of potential playoff contenders that one might have thought based on recent performance. But what do we think about Tampa Bay at Atlanta?
Well, Tampa Bay obviously is in trouble. They have been for a while. They have been in trouble actually also the past season. Last year, not deeply, but they were kind of like on the brink, I'd say. Some people expected them to become better, to be actually a contender this year. Others expected exactly what happened now, where they're 0-5. I don't see how they will manage to pull themselves out of this, and even if Atlanta might have been overrated before, if they're missing Julio Jones now, if Reggie Wayne is not full speed, I don't know if Steven Jackson is going to play, but I still think they're the much better team in this game, so I guess it's theirs to lose.
Yeah, Roddy White. Yes, I agree that Atlanta's, especially at home, going to take care of business against Tampa Bay, and I really don't foresee this one being close. One of these days, Atlanta's going to rise up and just smack somebody in the mouth and get all their frustrations out, and I think it'll be this weekend. And next, we'll talk about Cincinnati at Detroit, a game that I think is between two teams that are up and down, up one week, down the next. Both can be very strong contenders. Both can lay a goose egg and nobody's really surprised. I'm going to give it to the Lions at home based on kind of a gut feeling. And the fact that Andy Dalton threw 3 touchdowns last weekend means he's probably out of them for the next couple of weeks. So.
Well, that's an interesting idea. Let's see if it works out this way. I have the same problem like you. They're both kind of on-off. If it was on-off, actually, Detroit would have to lose because the last 2 weeks ago they won last week, so it would be a loss next week. Still, I gotta give it to the home team in this case. It's really a tough call, and I just give it to the home team because I have no better ideas.
Buffalo at Miami. A game that at one time earlier in the season seemed like, hey, this might be between the two teams that are gonna vie to fight for a spot in the AFC East, which was looking strong. But of course, now Buffalo's, game with the quarterbacks and their ugly situation that they find themselves in makes this one a little less scintillating.
Yeah, when you have to sign Matt Flynn, didn't make it onto the roster in 3 different teams now. You're obviously desperate. Even though Thad Lewis, who was starting last week, didn't do that bad. It was kind of okay. Still, I think E.J. Manuel gave them a better chance to win it. Obviously, he's out. And additionally, Miami's coming off a bye week. So they had more time to rest, more time to prepare for Buffalo, and they're at home. So I'm going to give it to Miami here.
Yeah, me too. After that, we've got New England at the Jets. One of those games that I think if David was here, he would be quick to point out is a close, tough division rival that always plays each other tough. What do you think?
Well, I think that if David was here, I'd have to point out to him that he was wrong. I don't think this will be a tough one for New England. I've been wrong several times now with New England in this season. But more often than not, I was wrong on that I thought they wouldn't be so good. So whenever I say they're not going to be good, they're going to be good. So let's go with they're going to be good and they're going to win it.
I think they will win, but I think it's going to be a close game. I'll take David's position on this one. Dallas at Philadelphia. The battle to go over 500 that we discussed earlier,
yes,
we alluded to.
Whoever wins this will be in the lead in the division.
Yes, in the driver's seat in the NFC East.
Well, I think the Dallas put up some good games and, like always, managed to lose it in some crucial point somewhere late in the game. If they don't do it, I think it's theirs to lose. But if they do, then it's Philadelphia's game, so tough call again. But I'll go with Dallas here because I simply think they have more potential.
I'll take Philly at home because I think the Eagles are slowly getting better. I don't think they're ever going to be really good this season, but I think they're slowly getting better. And I think they'll take the home match and keep it exciting, although at this point it does look like ultimately Dallas will be the one to seal that playoff spot in the NFC East. Get maybe another week or two before they take pole position. Chicago at Washington.
Well, Chicago being 4-2 and Washington being 1-4, so there's an obvious favorite here to win it. I think it's Chicago's game to lose, even though RG3 looked much better last week in the Dallas game. Yeah, his rushes looked better. They really looked like a little bit, at least, like last season.
Yes, definitely.
Still, they didn't manage to pull off the win after the bye week against Dallas, who are not the best team in the league currently, as we all know. I think it's Chicago's game to lose. I think they're the better team currently.
I'd love to go ahead and call for Washington to win at home, and a lot of my betting instincts say that that's a good call, but I watched enough of the game with RG3, and I saw him missing open receivers. His runs looked better, but his throws looked pretty weak, and so I'm going to go with Chicago based on a lack of faith in Washington at the moment and their offensive line and a few other holes they've got to fill.
Yeah, there's a lot of concerns.
Yeah. St. Louis, the big winners from a week ago at Carolina. What do we think here?
Well, I don't know what we think. I know what I think. I think that Carolina is looking better from their record than they actually are. Cam Newton seems to have lost a lot of his magic from his rookie season. And St. Louis, I think they suffer a lot from being in the NFC West, which I still consider one of the strongest divisions, even though the AFC West currently has more wins.
All the Western strength this year.
Yes,
yeah.
Western strength this year. Okay. Yes. I think the 3-3 record from Carolina makes them look better than they are, and I think the 2-3 record from St. Louis makes them worse than they are. So I'm gonna go with a road win for St. Louis here.
if I had a coin, I'd flip it. Let's do the standard, take the home team, Carolina. But I have absolutely no faith in either of these teams. And if they were playing anybody else,
I don't think either would like the players.
So yeah, let's say Carolina wins this one, but it's a battle of attrition. San Diego at Jacksonville. A chance for the Chargers to go above 500, or a chance for Jacksonville to get off the schneid? What do we think? What do you think?
I think we can do the same thing that we always do with the Jacksonville games.
1, 2, 3, San Diego. Yeah, okay. San Francisco at Tennessee.
Interesting game, I think. This will be an interesting game. Obviously, I'm watching San Francisco games a little bit closer than I watch other games because I'm a San Francisco fan. And I'm still not convinced of the team, and they're having really problems with injuries. First of all, on the receiver side, but also in the secondary. On the other hand, Tennessee lost their starting quarterback in Jake Locker, and as far as I know, he won't be back. So it's Fitzpatrick again to start. I don't have very much trust in him. And actually, that gives that's what making me think that San Francisco is going to win it. But I think it's going to be a tough game, and I'm really curious to see what kind of San Francisco team we're going to see this week.
I think San Francisco is going to win this one going away. I think it's going to be fairly easy for him, and a big part of that is the Fitzpatrick thing. I thought there wasn't going to be much of a drop-off from Locker to him, but so far I've been very unimpressed with what I've seen out of Fitz, and it's getting into the third week, so maybe he gets a little better with his receivers. Maybe he gets his timing down a little bit, but I think San Francisco is going to win this one easily. Cleveland at Green Bay. The rejuvenated Browns came back to earth a little bit, but they're still better than anyone expected. Green Bay, on the other hand, a little less thrilling than everyone expected. And, of course, they're a walking mash unit right now. Is that enough for the Browns to pull the upset?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so. 2 out of the 3 wins from Cleveland came while Brian Hoyer was the quarterback. He's out for the season, and Brandon Whedon might be an answer to some question, but not not to any of the questions that they have in Cleveland, I think. I don't think he's going to make it very much longer in this team. He might make it through the season, but that's going to be it, I think. And for in this game, Green Bay at home, I don't see them having any chance to win it.
I think the big reason that I wouldn't even consider the upset here is the fact that Green Bay's running game has come around of late. The fact that Eddie Lacy's out there, he's able to pound the ball. They don't have to rely on 350 yards out of Aaron Rodgers, as was the case here recent seasons. So the fact that, he's missing a few receivers doesn't seem to be quite the death knell that it might have been up until last year. So. Absolutely. Okay. Houston, Kansas City. Can the Chiefs stay undefeated against the once mighty Texans?
The Texans are in a big slump, and they are in kind of a hole that I don't know how they get themselves into that hole. Obviously, for a time it was pick six sharp.
Yeah.
Which he did several weeks in a row, and also did it in a way that people started cheering when he got out of the game being hurt.
Yeah.
So he actually has lost the confidence of the home crowd there. On the other hand, I don't think it's all on. You can't put it all on Matt Schaub, and also I don't think Yates would be the solution there.
No, because it was pick six Yates this
week. So people start thinking of if Gary Kubiak actually is the real problem there. I don't know, but still I don't know. I don't see them pulling them out of the hole yet. I think Kansas City has gathered enough self-confidence with being big 6-0 now, so that they can pull this off at home, and I don't see the Houston Texans doing the upset.
This is the kind of game that Kansas City in the 90s, which their defense currently is reminding me of, and the early 2000s before Dick Vermeil took over, that they just love. a game where an offense that's shaky, whose offensive line isn't all there, whose quarterback has quick release and quick feet and is getting a little worried. This is the kind of game that they've always historically feasted on. We saw it last week late in the game with Terrell Pryor. They get the guy a little rattled, and then they bring the house, and you end up with 10 sacks. and I think that this will be a very similar game. It'll stay close early, heavy doses of Foster and Tate probably to keep the game close. Little later on, there'll be some sort of momentum swing where the Chiefs get a sack or two, and then it'll just go downhill from there for the Texans, unfortunately. Unless, of course, you're a Chiefs fan, in which case it's very fortunate. So, yeah, Kansas City at home, I think it's going to end up being not that close when it's said and done. Baltimore at Pittsburgh, and what is no longer a marquee matchup in a lot of ways, but it's still got the names, it's still got the coaches, it's still got some of the key players.
Yeah, but what they still don't have is an answer to the question why the Steelers won last week. I don't think they know themselves. They gotta be puzzled. Maybe it was just because they came off the bye week. I don't know. No, the Pittsburgh team currently looks terrible to me. They have been relying on, let's say, old people for much too long. We need a rejuvenating program, and it's in the making. It's not even started yet, so I don't see them pulling it off against Baltimore even at home.
Well, I like to pick the Steelers, and it finally came through for me last week, which means I give myself permission to jump off that bandwagon, but I'm not going to. We're in Three Rivers. We're seeing the return of Roethlisberger. We're seeing, actually, I don't know how they won last week either, but I'm still picking them this week. They're at home, and part of that's because I still just, this season especially, have very little faith in Joe Flacco and the Baltimore Ravens. If he's not hitting Torrey Smith with a bomb, then he doesn't really seem to know what to do with the ball. And they don't seem to want to give it to Ray Rice for some reason, and
it's not only not wanting to do it. Also, Rice's number on less than stellar. So when you count the averages that he has per rush, I've seen him do better.
True. So
it's also kind of a non-factor in the passing game, which is kind of unusual for him.
Pittsburgh with the win, but again, I doesn't make me excited about their season. Denver at Indianapolis in a game with everybody is excited to see. Peyton Manning's return to Indianapolis. Two of obviously probably the four best teams. Patriots, Chiefs, Denver, and At this point, it's going to be a battle, and I see the Colts pulling it out at home. I think Denver's going to be ready. It's tough to call. Denver could come in and blow them out, and that wouldn't really surprise anybody. But I think they're going to hit that ground game hard, and they're going to find a way to keep the ball out of Peyton Manning's hand as often as possible. Peyton will look great when he does have the ball, and yet I think when it comes down to crunch time, Indianapolis has shown that they can win a tough, close game at home, and they're going to pull it off this week. Well,
I think it really depends on if it's going to be a high-scoring game or a low-scoring game. If it's going to be a low-scoring game, then it's Indianapolis who will win this. If it's rather a high-scoring game, I don't see Indianapolis having the tools to go these lengths yet, maybe. Luck's a huge talent. He's very good in the bucket. He can run, but he usually is rather pocket pass, just like Manning is, and he'll become even better at that, I think, in the future. But still, I don't see the guy that goes like for 350, 400 yards like every week. So if it's a high-scoring game, it's gonna be Denver, I think. If it's a low-scoring game, it's gonna be Indianapolis, as I just said before. And also for Denver, pretty much everyone is on their bandwagon currently. But if you consider their summed-up opponent's record, it's not that stellar. Actually, they have, from the strength of schedule, season up to date, they're among the teams having the weakest schedule now, even if you discount their games.
Right.
So also the game against Dallas, 48 points for Dallas hasn't sold me on their defense yet. I don't know, Van Miller is not gonna be back yet. I think.
Don't think so.
To make it short, well, not anymore, but still, I think it's Indianapolis.
Okay. Lastly, we have Minnesota at the New York Giants. The mighty Giants looking to pick up their first win of the season. The New York Football Giants. Eli Manning, Tom Coughlin, Super Bowl rings.
Well, I think this is the absolute best moment for the Giants to have this game, to have Minneapolis come into town, to start pulling themselves out of the slump. Minneapolis has looked less than stellar in the last weeks.
True.
Even Adrian Peterson doesn't seem to be his old himself anymore, and also not being quite sure who's it gonna be to start a game. Is it gonna be Castle, or did they bring Freeman in for taking over? I mean, they always pretend to have no, he's our starter.
Sure, of course.
But you don't know what happens in the background, and I guess there's gonna be some insecurities in the team, which doesn't help a 1-4 team at all. And I think we'll see the Giants moving up to the first win.
I also think the Giants are going to pull off the first win. They looked not great last weekend, and they're probably not going to look great all season, but they did look better. They were at least competitive for a little longer in the game. I do think that Minnesota is at a turning point. We've probably seen the last of Christian Ponder, at least unless we see some injuries this season. Probably get another start out of Castle, and then they try out Freeman for a few months and decide who they want to draft from there. But I think the Giants will find a way to win this one and at least avoid the ignominy of having the worst start in franchise history. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, well, that about wraps it up for this week's session of Touchdown. Thanks for joining us. We'll be with you again next week. And until then, keep watching some football.
Fun.